Well, hello guys, David Vos here, and it's another beautiful day in Oklahoma. It wasn't even that hot today. It was actually a very nice day, and seemed like it wasn't so humid. I hope you're having a wonderful day where you are. Well, I want to do probably one more of these videos to kind of get on top of what's really going on here, because I think we have a really good idea who's running the world. I think we have a very, 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 very good idea. But I want you to see how, a little more clearly, how they are manipulating us and some of the things that they're doing. It's just so evil, and we should have known, but we don't seem to care. But I've been noticing some very strange things here over the last couple of weeks. Well, we've been seeing this for a while. They predicted this pandemic a year or so in advance, and sure enough it came, and they've been predicting another one's coming, worse, right? Well, they've also been predicting a lot of flooding and droughts and global warming's gonna happen. Look at this. This article says, like the start of a horror movie, ancient creatures are emerging from the cold, storage of now melting permafrost, from incredibly preserved extinct megafauna like the woolly rhino, to the 40,000-year-old remains of a giant wolf and bacteria over 750,000 years old. Bacteria. It's coming back to life, guys. It's all due to global warming. Because it's getting warmer, the ice is all melting, guys. And therefore, all these bacteria are coming to life. And we're all going to die. And this is why, see, wait a minute, they never told us that this pandemic was because of the dinosaurs. But now they're telling us that, yeah, it's because of the dinosaurs, and you just happen, this thing, life goes on for trillions of years, or billions, or whatever, on and on and on. We evolved from the polywog, and now I guess we've just evolved to the point where, hey, everything's going to have to just die, because this is another one of those things. But in this case, it isn't one of those things. It's not natural. See, it's probably due to the fact that you little peasant, you're probably doing bad things. Smoking and, dumping your trash in the yard or having a wood stove in your home. But you see, it's not the billionaires and the factories. No, it's not that. It's your car. It's burning too much energy. You have to stop driving. The elite, they're going to keep flying their jets to the moon, right? They're going to keep on. I mean, I don't even know how much. If the atmosphere is going away, it's probably due to their rockets, right? The little rocket man. And yeah, I called Elon the little rocket man. And he's got a little rocket mini self, right? Jeff Bezos. And these guys are ruining the world and laughing all the way to the bank. But now, it says not all of these bacteria and stuff are dead. Not all this ancient fungus and viruses down under the ice, they're not all gone. They're coming back to life. Centuries-old moss. That'll get you, the moss. And it was able to spring back to life in the warm laboratory. Oh, you mean they took it to a laboratory to bring it back to life? Oh, this is an experiment. The doctors just couldn't help it. They had to just waken it up because darn global warming. So we took it to a laboratory. So incredibly, there were 42,000-year-old roundworms. Oh, but we just brought them out of the, icy cold and warmed them up, give them some mouth to mouth, revived them, put them in a little test tube, and doggone it, they got out. And now they're running around New York City. Our bad, but guess what? It was just an accident. So everything will be fine. Just, you guys are going to have to come in and get an SHOT. Okay? And you'll have to acknowledge that the world's coming to an end and just, stand down. You can't go to church no more. We can't have any more life on this earth. No buying and selling. You're done. You can't be driving your cars anymore. Okay? We, the elite, we need the air and the minerals and the resources of the world. We just can't have all these people running around anymore. And that's just the way it's going to be. But this is a fascinating glimpse of the organisms from Earth's long distant past, and it's revealing the history of the ancient ecosystems, including details of the environments in which they existed. But the melt has also created some concerns about ancient viruses, guys. Okay, and this is odd that it comes right at the point where we just had this huge man-made scare. I mean, real, it was not an HOX, guys. This was real. Everybody's dying all around, as you can see. This is a crisis, a pandemic. And it's going to get worse because, because we say so. Melting will not only lead to the loss of those ancient archive microbes and viruses, but also release them to the environments in the future. Researchers write in a new study led by first author of microbiologist Ziping Zhang of Ohio State University. Thanks to new metagenomics techniques and new methods for keeping their ice core samples sterilized, the workers are working on getting a better understanding. Well, this is so weird. I mean, I can't even imagine people believing this, but look, they've gotten away with everything else. They got away with pretending that we went to the moon. We sat there and watched it. I can't believe I was, just a kid watching television. They're like, oh, we went to the moon, one step from mankind. And I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't think about it. It kind of looked phony to me, but I didn't say anything because Dad and Mom seemed to think it was normal. They were adults, right? They didn't think anything was going on when the doctor said we had to take Grandma down to the hospital and radiate her lung out of her chest. I mean, I was like, okay, so you get rid of the cancer, now what? She can't breathe. But anyway, that is just one of the things that I was struck with this particular week or whatever. I mean, been several things. It's just like every day something sticks out at me and just shocks me. I don't comprehend what I'm seeing. And I'm wondering how many other people are noticing all this stuff. Well, so they are predicting in advance that we're going to have this terrible, PAND whatever. And it turns out we, have a normal cold season. And now the whole world's shut down and we're going into, I don't know. We're going into it though. But, something man-made. Something not organic. Par for the core. We've been doing this, World War I, World War II. The guy got to have a World War III. And, it's never going to end because it's a gimmick. It's how they manipulate us with fear and tactics of intimidation. But now here's one that I noticed that just crazy. I mean, I've been hearing, before I saw this, I've been hearing everybody saying, oh, well, it's going to flood. We're going to flood. We're going to see floods. It's going to be bad. And then it's going to be drought over there in California somehow. Even though I don't understand that because the Colorado River comes off the Colorado Mountains, the Rocky Mountains. It comes way up into Montana or up in Colorado. I don't know. Did they have a very poor winter there? Is there no snowpack in the mountains? So I don't care what the weather is in California. There should be plenty of water in Hoover Dam coming down the Colorado. So, I mean, I don't really understand that. That's why that river supplies and has for many years, supplies all of California basically, because it's coming down off the Rockies. But now all of a sudden they're saying it's going to be a drought. Well, then there's going to be all these floodings. And we know that as we've been reading here, they're trying to scare us into thinking that there's something called global warming. See, they're always scaring you. Oh, there's nuclear weapons. Little Rocket Man's about to shoot one off. Well, we need more of your tax money. We need to build some more weapons. We need to have, restore our military and make America great again. Of course, we always got to keep doing this. America just keeps getting worse and worse, and we got to keep making her better every 4 years. We make her better, right? We build our military better. We take more of your taxes. Look, I understand what Trump was trying to do, and I agree with him. We do, if we're a government for the people and by the people, I definitely want to be able to defend myself from all this one world government stuff. But as of right now, it looks like we are the one world government. I don't know. You know, Toys R Us or whatever, Wars R Us or something. So, I then I see this thing all over the papers and all over the internet. It says the moon wobble, climate change expected to cause surge in flooding in the United States coastal communities, study says. So they're already expecting this, and they want us to believe that when these floods come and start wiping out cities, and evidently they will, because they never get it wrong, guys. No, remember, they said that there was going to be global warming. Well, of course there is global warming, you dummy. Don't you see it? See all the bad weather, yeah, that they invented, that they're causing? Well, they want you to believe that it's global warming because they said so. And they've been reminding you. And now they want you to know that there's going to be a reason, and it's not their fault, when your city goes washing down the stream, when your dams break, when your levees break. This is going to be a terrible, terrible flooding event, they claim. Terrible. And it's all because of global warming. Remember how they always make sure that we know that there is a problem, and they keep drilling it into our head before they give us the cure. Remember, for I don't know how many years, there was all these bombers or what would you call them, terrorists running around with suitcase bombs or backpacks with bombs, going into local markets and stuff around the world, blowing things up. Well, you haven't seen that hardly at all anymore, because it doesn't fit their agenda anymore. We're not trying to go to war with Iraq anymore, so we're not trying to prove that the Arabs are all a bunch of terrorists. So you just don't see a bunch of Arabs running around blowing things up anymore. Okay, now they want us to believe that it's some kind of grassroots effort, right? The kids just want socialism. Dadgummit, they're out in the streets rioting, and they don't like law and order, and they don't like anything, right? So we're just going to stand down and pull out, and we're not going to have any more government. We're not going to repair the roads. We still want your taxes, but we're just going to give everybody money. We don't have to work anymore, and you all come down and get your SHOT, and don't worry, it's fine. We've checked it all out. It'll be fine. But that's the narrative, guys. And so, there is so much to find out. And it is crazy when you find out the truth, and you find out that it was always there. It's in black and white. It's in full living color. It's at your fingertips. All this information always has been, but nobody cares, and nobody mentions it. Nobody finds it. Nobody exposes it. Nobody pays attention. We don't realize it, but we are subjects of the British monarchy. And even though we are told here in America, we're in the country of the United States, and we have our own laws, and we're a place of a representative government. It's supposed to be the Senate, the senators, we elect them, and they're supposed to represent the people. This is not just some little thing. It's not important. This is the whole basis of our government. Without that, we don't have a government. And friends, we do not have a government. Absolutely. We are subjects of Queen Elizabeth. That's a fact. And there's some stuff that I can't believe people don't know it. You hear little things like, well, there's a bunch of offshore money, you know. It's like, oh, okay. We don't know what that means. It's like, well, there's rumors that there's trillions of dollars somewhere in an offshore account, and the real billionaires, we don't know their names. Okay, so why don't we? We keep hearing that, but what is the answer? What's the truth? Well, you have to Simply look it up. It really is just right there. They control everything, the British Crown. There are 3 companies in the world that control literally everything in the world. Vanguard, Blackwater, and what's the other one? State Line or something. But the British law is supposed to prohibit anyone from questioning whether or not the monarchy has any money or personal holdings. It's against the law. So when we are told who the billionaires in the world, like Bill Gates and Bezos, that's not the top billionaires in the world. Because the monarchies, those who are officially bloodline monarchies sitting on a throne, they have all the money. Especially the British and the Vatican banks. And they don't have to tell us how much money they have because they're monarchs. They're royal bloodlines, so they don't have to disclose how much money they have. They have a lot more money than you'll ever dream. So Europe's royalty, as well as any royalty anywhere in the world. And all of their wealth is held outside of the countries. So there are a lot of offshore banks other than, we've got these federal banks. They all work together. It's a scheme. They make banks for us peasants where they can take our money. They make banks for themselves so they can hold their billions and they don't have to pay any taxes and, keep it away from us. And we don't even know what's really going on because we just simply don't pay any attention or care. We could demand this information. We don't even have to demand it. It's right here. I'm going to tell you this information. But I'll bet you $5 nobody does anything about it. I bet you $5 that people will, maybe only a few thousand people will even ever watch this video. And after you're done watching it, you won't really care. You'll just roll over and go back to sleep. But in their offshore banks, the British Crown has $35 trillion. Look, that's an estimate. It's very low. There's probably a lot more trillions there. There are 53 different nations that are part of the Commonwealth of the British Empire. A lot of the countries around the world have prime ministers. That literally means they don't have their own president or they're ministers of the Queen. I don't know why people don't realize it, but we think that we've gotten rid of the feudal lords and we vote people in, we have democracies. None of that's true. We're all Commonwealth. We're all under the power of the Vatican, the Pope. You go to court in America, you go to a magistrate court because Her Majesty is still in charge. Now, the other day we talked about how the Knights of Malta are the most powerful government in the world because they are collectively all of the royal bloodlines, and they have a little group. And so the Queen of England's also she's knighted as one of the Knights of Malta. It's a sovereign military order. They took control of the power and the wealth of the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon from within the Roman system. The Roman Catholic priestly order, called the Jesuits, they subordinated the Knights of Malta in 1798. They did this with the help of Napoleon Bonaparte. That led to the Jesuits making the British have control over the island of Malta. And so the Jesuits control the Vatican and the military order of Malta, or I should say the military order of Malta controls the Jesuits, because the people that are in charge are the royal bloodlines. And that is their government, where they come together and vote, and they have a chairman and a CEO and so forth. And it's more or less like a Ponzi scheme, because they just put their money into big multi-billion-dollar monopolies and companies and shift their money around. And they know what they're going to do, so they can always make money. They can fake society out, make the money in the stock market go up and down. Where the peasants are losing their money, they're making money by inflating all of the prices of the companies and so forth, and they have complete control of the companies. There's a group that more or less controls them, which is the Order of the Garter of the Pilgrim Society. So you see, there seems to be organizations within organizations within organizations. So when you look up who controls the financial world, everything in the world, you would say that it's the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, the Order of Malta, the Opus Dei, and the City of London Corporation, the Worshipful Company of Mercers, the Worshipful Company of the International Bankers. So they have some various little orders, kind of like cabinets within their grand government. So the Queen has an offshore kingdom. A third of all the wealth is held offshore. And half of the world's trade flows through certain little tax havens that they've built for themselves so that they don't have to pay any taxes. So the City of London is the money laundering capital of the world. You've got the Cayman Islands, where it's kind of a territory of the United Kingdom, but they make their own rules about taxes and so forth. And of course, it's done basically as a tax haven for the rich. So that country is the world's 5th largest financial service country. It has all of the banks over there in the Cayman Islands. Now, you'd think somebody would say, hey, that's not fair. Why don't us poor people put all of our money over there, right, and get the same deal? Because we don't know, or we're just obedient, or whatever. I don't know. Nobody really cares, I guess. It's simply, human beings seem to be very much like dumb, brute animals. They just follow, like sheep. But the Caymans have tax-free incentives, and they don't have any financial regulation or any oversight over what they're doing there. They just let the people come and put their money in there, and they don't take any taxes or anything like that. They let them hide it. That's what it basically is. And it's not like something being done underground or whatever. Everybody's known about this for a long, long time. The minute Donald Trump is said to have put a little money offshore or done something like this, it's, oh, they're just so insulted and how terrible, he's an evil person. And yet all of these billionaires, they're all doing it in actuality. And it seems like Trump hasn't done something like that. We don't know. But the funny thing is that the very people that will blame and try to put you away for tax evasion or lying, you know, to a court judge or something, put you away for life, these are the same people that's doing much worse behind the scenes. The world has now come down to a place where everything is such a lie and it's so evil, and there's a few people that are just completely holding the rest of mankind down. So the Cayman Islands is the world's 5th largest financial service center, has 10,000 mutual funds, 200 banks. It has 90,000 companies there and 140 trust companies. So they put their money in trust companies so they don't have to pay taxes at all. So it's where the world's top hedge funds and captive health insurance companies exist too. Bermuda is another place where they do this, and Guernsey belongs to the British Crown, but makes its own laws on matters such as taxation and so forth. The island of 65,000 people has made a big push towards being an offshore financial destination. It prints its own banknotes, makes its own tax laws. And this is just a big tax scheme worldwide where the rich get richer and we, the poor, just get poor, and we simply get stupider as well. Now let me read something here to you. This is very amazing information. Please pay attention to this. There is a linear connection between the Rothschilds, the Bank of England, and the London banking houses, which ultimately links the stockholders of the Federal Reserve banks to their subsidiary firms in New York and the City of London, UK. The two principal Rothschild representatives in New York, J.P. Morgan Company and Kuhn and Loeb and Company, were the firms which set up the Jekyll Island Conference, at which the Federal Reserve Act was created, and directed the subsequent successful campaign to have the plan enacted into law by Congress, and who purchased the controlling amounts of stock in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. These firms had their principal officers appointed to the Federal Reserve Board of Governors and the Federal Advisory Council in 1914. Remember, we started taxation in 1913. And this all happened because of the war. They convinced us to do all this because of the war. In 1914, a few families owning controlling stock in existing banks caused those banks to purchase controlling shares in the Federal Reserve regional banks. Examination of the charts and text in the House Banking Committee staff report of August 1976 and the current stockholders list of the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks show this same family had control. So, we look at the top shareholders of the top military contractors for America. We call the corporate or the bankster warlords to see what connection they might have to the British Crown and their investments. We have Vanguard Group, State Street Corporation, and BlackRock. Those are the top three. The top two is BlackRock and Vanguard, and State Street comes in third. Then Capital Research, Templeton Investment, Barclays Bank, Schroeder's Investment, Capital World Investors, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan's, Bank of New York Mellon Corporation, BlackRock, we said that one. But this is BlackRock Advisors, BlackRock Fund Advisors, Old Republic International, Wellington Management Company, BlackRock Institution Trust Company, Evercore Trust Company, Resources, Goldman and Sachs. They come in about fourth. Of course, owned by Warren Buffett and his people. And T. Rowe Price Group. Those really, three of those companies own 99% of all the companies in the world, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. They're not two competing brands. They own both companies. They own both. There's no competition. There's just two flavors in their repertoire. So they own ExxonMobil and BP oil. They own Exxon. They own Mobil. They own all of them. They own all the electric companies. They own all the restaurants in the world. They own all the car companies in the world. They're all brothers. And the interesting thing about the list is you can find some of the very same suspects that we always find. The Warburgs, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, and these names that we've been following. Now, to find out who's in charge, you have to try and find out who is invested into these companies. Now, when it comes to this Blackwater company, the main guy there seems to be a guy named Fink, Larry Fink. Now, when you look about how much money he has, they say he only has $1 billion. But he is more or less the chairman and CEO of Blackwater, who owns $6 trillion worth of our companies. That other Vanguard has another 6-point-some trillion, or I think they're up to about 8-something trillion now that they own. So there's about something like 15 to 20 trillion dollars of companies. And it's these three companies that own all of them. And who owns these companies? Well, this guy named Fink. And another very interesting feller in the BlackRock seems to be a guy named Goldstein. And since they make up their names, I mean, really, that's not, most of us just are born into the world. We don't know why we got our name. They stamp something on our forehead and we move on down the road. We have no control over it, you know. We're born that way. But a lot of these guys, they carefully articulate what their name's going to be. They make it sort of a tell-all as to who they are. So Gold and Stein. So the Steins, as we said yesterday, may be the most powerful family in the world today. Now that doesn't mean that Orsini and these other groups in the Rothschilds weren't originally the ones who started all the banking and everything, but they've got many children. They come down and they and various family lines come up. But it seems the Steins are today, for some reason, some of the most influential in the Bergs and the Vitches, the Mikoviches and the Dersoviches and the things like this. And there's quite a few different groups, a number of people that are very powerful. But the Steins seem to be right up there. So we've got this guy named Goldstein that's got trillions of dollars in offshore accounts. He's the chairman of, he's the chief operating officer of this BlackRock. But it's difficult to know who really owns BlackRock. It's not really, it's just a company, kind of like, I don't know, it's a corporation or something where all these people who have money use it as an undercover way to own everything. So, in other words, you don't just have this one family that just has their name stamped as the owner of everything. Okay? You end up having these companies like Google and Facebook, and these are companies. And then they have these little CEOs that's the name that you're familiar with, like Gookin, Burger, and some other, Bill Gates or whatever. And they are wealthy people, yes. But who is the real owner of Microsoft and Google and all those things? Well, as we said, it's another corporate entity called Blackwater, another one called Vanguard, and you've got to figure out who owns them. And there is just a few families that own all of them, and they're the same families, the royal families, that they have a form of government that works with a couple other governments. They kind of work together. So the Jesuit is an arm of the Vatican, and the Knights of Malta are more or less a governing body that runs and puts in the popes that they want and runs their churches and their banks. So you'd say the church is more or less a tool of the richest royal families. The banks is a major tool for the richest royal families. So who owns the churches? Well, how do you know who owns churches? Well, who is ever appointed as the bishop or the pope or whatever. And so these are the people, these royal bloodlines that vote on everything. They have inside trader information because they are running the company, so they can make billions of dollars. They lobby congresses and parliaments all around the world. They own little like CIA and KGB groups in every Mossad, different companies or different nations. They have these groups that are running around causing terror and have all the tax money that they can. Everything's classified. We, the people, don't know what's going on because everything's classified and they're running it all. But the actual people then, I will name them, all of them, that run and are in control of Blackwater, which is the number one company in the world, that and Vanguard, but we'll do Blackwater first. They're about equal. They both have about $7 or $8 trillion of control in the world. So we've got Mark Weidman, Lawrence Fink. Capito is the president of Blackwater. Weidman is the senior managing director. But the chairman and the CEO is Fink. He owns quite a bit of Blackwater. So then when you look up who is the shareholders of Vanguard, and of course they don't give you any names, but it's companies that they will tell you. So there are these 5 or 6 different corporations that own another corporation. They're just investment corporations or something. I don't know how they get around this, but you've got businesses, and then you've got businesses that create businesses, and then you got businesses that finance businesses. But you can never know the names of the people behind these top corporations that are just there to be a way to transfer money and do the owning of everything incognito. So that's really what Vanguard is. Even the word Vanguard, it's their vanguard to stop the world from knowing who they are. So it tells you that the biggest shareholder of Vanguard is BlackRock. And then the people who own BlackRock is Vanguard, right? And then the second biggest shareholder in Vanguard is Vanguard. I mean, they just invest in themselves. So they own part of their own company. Who are they that own their own company? Well, it's probably several very rich bloodlines, royal bloodlines that, remember, all this wealth belongs to the royal bloodline, to the king. The highest king owns it all. Technically, that would be Queen Elizabeth, and it will be going and transferring over to Prince William. He is technically supposed to be the one who makes all the decisions about this gold. Now, we don't know exactly how they're doing that these days, because it's kind of like the knights, the royal knights, that do the bidding of the king. Well, the Knights of Malta now, instead of being soldiers, are businessmen. And they're all royal bloodlines. They're all children or brothers. They're all brothers in this one family. So the eldest brother gets everything. Right now it seems to be a Stein. So, as weird and as awful as this may sound, and it does very much sound very bad, this has been going on ever since man began. There's always been, as long as there's been governments, there's always been a king, and the king had all the wealth. They always had dungeons, which today we call prisons, and they're usually underneath the court house or underneath the arena where they fed them to the lion, or okay, but it's same. It's all the same principle. So nothing has changed at all, except that they're keeping it a secret from you. When Jesus came, those of you who don't believe that Jesus is a real thing, or you don't believe in the Bible or whatever, think about this. If you can believe in anything, you should be able to believe in reality, and you'll be able to see what is reality, at least for a moment. It's kind of hard to know what reality is in the long run, because some people get pretty confused. But if you just look right there in front of your nose, you'll see that there is a world. Look at the newspaper, look at the date. You can thumb through there and see the different things that's going on in the world. It's all real. There's Democrats, Republicans, and we've got billionaires like Bill Gates, companies, and all this is real. And these people own everything. But you see, the only way they could do that is because of a particular religion that mankind's been under all this time. And that is why Jesus came. He came to the people who had this monopoly, the God of wrath, who held us hostage. We were under this curse, this bondage. We were under death. Remember when Yahweh came down and said, I don't want these people anymore. I'm regretting I made them. And he wipes them all out in the flood. Yeah, he can do that. And he's the God of this world. And he's blinding the minds of the unbelievers, and he's got wrath. And he's coming back in his wrath. He tells you that all the way through the Old Testament. Now, of course, Jesus came and said, look, all you got to do is not believe him. Don't sign at the bottom line. Don't agree to that covenant, that arrangement of things. Jesus said, I got another arrangement. I'm going to purchase you with my blood. All you got to do is receive it. And then you're not under any more condemnation. Because those who walk after Christ are not under any condemnation. We're not appointed under the wrath. Because we've been set free. We're not guilty. See, we're not guilty anyway. It's just a big lie. But if you marry somebody, that's how the original marriage thing was. You make an agreement. The man sets down a law. You agree to it. He agrees to give you food and shelter, and that's about it. He can beat you. You can't run away. But he has to give you food and shelter and the firstborn of your children. If you're his first wife, he has lots of slaves. He can do anything he wants with these handmaids and handmaidens, or whatever they're called, concubines and stuff. These were slaves. Okay, but he would have this one woman which would bear his heir. If you happen to be that woman, oh man, you are something special. You got to bear the heir. And in that case, because the heir was your own son, you got a little bit special treatment there under Yahweh's law. Yahweh had, the women were to be submissive. They couldn't say anything. They couldn't sign their own contract, do what they wanted. They had to be quiet and be submissive. So, she was bound by the law of her husband unto death. Bound by the law of her husband, the apostle says. But we have been set free from the law of sin and death. We're not guilty. It doesn't concern us. And in fact, it is nothing but a slander. It's slanderous. It's not true, because he is a liar. And no one is under the bondage of the law. Because the only way you can be under it is to believe it, because you're in charge. You're an heir. In Christ, you're an heir of God. You have all authority. All you have to do is receive what Christ has given you when he blew upon us and gave us the Holy Spirit, which makes us his own kin. He raised us up together with him into a new life. We're new creatures in Christ. And so we're not under this other kingdom. We're no part of this world. So you don't have to have anything to do with all of this garbage down here. And all you do, and you don't have to join some church or, do some ritual or anything like that. You see, because it's simply his grace. You don't have to say many words, any specific words at all. You don't have to write anything down. You don't have to confess any particular sin or any particular... all you have to do is confess that you love him. Cry out, Abba, Father, help me. That's how you receive when you are willing to receive. By saying, let it come. I want. I wish it. That's it. That's all you have to do. There's no specific ceremonial words you must speak. Baptism is a symbol. That's the Old Testament ceremonies and laws. Now as Christians, we don't do any ceremonies or laws because we're all priests and we go right on into the inner sanctum ourselves. We don't need a priesthood. We don't need any ceremonies or rituals. We don't go into a house made with hands. We go right into our own temple, our body. We can go within ourselves, find that still small voice, that security, that peace, and receive the fruit of that spirit, which is love, joy, mildness, goodness, kindness, gentleness, patience, and self-control. And so, we are the revelation of the free children of the divine being. So everything that they're doing down here is completely bogus. You're not under any of it. And I really do believe that that's why they're faking everything, to intimidate us. But it's not true. I don't think they would have ever been allowed to be to create some sort of a weapon, nuclear type thing that could radiate the earth for thousands of years. Nobody could live on the earth again, you know? I'm sure that would never have been allowed. But they're claiming that they have this. I think they're doing not as much as what they're claiming. They haven't gone to the moon. And it's really quite a charade if you think about it, because if Elon Musk knows we never went to the moon, I'm sure these people, they know what's going on, right? If he knows that, then he's running around telling everybody, oh yeah, we got their ship, we're going up to the Mars next week, you know, right? And Bezos is getting in on the charade, and then old Branson, that Virgin Mobile guy, he's wanting to get in the spotlight, and he's in the news, you know, he went to space and all that stuff. Really? I think he went up in the air and maybe a mile or so in the air and then landed out there somewhere, and that's it. I don't think they're going anywhere. I don't think the little rocket man over there in Korea really had any nuclear weapons. I don't think there is such a thing. I think there are bombs, really big bombs, dynamite, and extraordinarily powerful dynamite. You know, they got some power. They may be able to split atoms in some way. But, you know, all that is a reaction between chemicals and metals and things like that. You know, you can do a little experiment there with a Coke bottle and some Alka-Seltzer, right? You know that these chemicals have reactions. Okay, but that doesn't mean that they can somehow start a chain reaction, you know, and destroy the entire universe because these guys are so smart. They're lying. They want you to feel threatened. They want you to believe that there might be something called a VIRUS running around. You're going to die, you know. They've got us afraid of everything. And they've got a cure for everything that we're afraid of. And it costs $9.99 usually, or sometimes $19.99. I've even seen it $29.99. But it usually doesn't help you. So, I don't really think they're forcing anybody to get this HOT. You've seen a couple of things on the news where they grab somebody and take them to the jail, right, and rough them up or whatever. Well, under the law, cops can take you to jail for anything, for, you know, whatever. And they let you go the next day and like, no charges, because there is no charge. I mean, you broke no law. But you can film that. This old lady getting handcuffed and taken to jail because she wasn't wearing a mask, and everybody's like, oh, she was arrested. She wasn't arrested. Well, I would call it arresting, right? You're handcuffing her, taking her to jail, but she's only booked and then let go. They decide not to charge. It's just intimidation. And they're going to continue to intimidate, but they're not going to ever come out and jump down on you and put a straitjacket around you and force you. Now, they can, but again, they must go by their own law. Like if you sign over your rights willingly, they can do whatever they want. Now, that is why they'll take a lot of young people that are like 16, 17 to a mental institution, because you see, once they're over 18, it's going to be very difficult to get them to sign away their own life. What they do is they intimidate. They find families where there's a lot of problems and there's some arguing going on with the mother and the daughter or the son or whatever. And maybe the daughter's teenager and she's acting out and she busted something, and so whatever, the cops come a couple times. And the third time they're like, you know, some of these places like California, they're just, instead of putting people in jail, they want to get them over some stupid little thing like you ran out the door and broke a window or something happened or yelled at somebody. They'll just take you to the mental institution for 72 hours. They got that long legally. And while you're there, they put you on drugs. And of course, you're worse now because you're on some drug like speed you've never been on. And it's causing you to get, you know, and then they find another one. Oh, it settled you down. And now you're so happy because you're freaked out. You were drooling. Your mom and dad thinks you're crazy now because they're convinced. They've been brainwashed. And everybody thinks you're crazy. Now you think you're crazy too. And some of these drugs they give you made you feel pretty good there for a while until, you know, of course you need to have your meds adjusted. But anyway, they get you on this lifelong process where you're stuck like Chuck. But they couldn't have gotten you if you had to sign away your own life, because that's your legal right. They can't force you. So they make your mother and father sign away your life when you're 17 before you're of age. But see, it's easier to convince somebody like your mom and your dad that they've been going to some church their whole life and they believe in the government and the doctor, so, that's their religion. And they sign away your life for you. Once it's been signed over, you go to a mental institution, or let's just say that you get out eventually, but you're still marked. They know that you were already in there, and if you were prescribed medications and you're not taking them, they can just haul you off again. Because, you're going to get stressed out, because this world's stressed out. It's a stressy world. They made it that way. They want you to act out and get mad. And when you get mad, they say you're crazy, you're stupid, you're a bad person. So, what I'm saying is, I could give you many examples where the devil doesn't have any authority over you. All he can do is deceive you. This great tribulation that's coming, people will be killing themselves. It'll be mother against brother and father against son. It will not be. The government cannot just, anybody can come and hurt you or kill you or push you around or whatever. Everybody has free will. Okay? But Yahweh cannot himself come down here and murder us. He can teach people lies, tell them, teacheth their hand for warfare. He can tell them to do stuff. And people of their own free will can go out and murder each other like they did, World War II. We kill each other. But we're deceived into doing it. So, you don't have to, guys. It's only intimidation. You don't have to get the SHOT. But you will have to be willing to live apart from them. If you're going to go and get, like Jesus said, you're going to walk on their roads and go to their libraries and pay them their dinero or whatever. Whose inscription's on that coin? Oh, it's Caesar's. Well, give Caesar's things to Caesar. So if you're going to be involved in the world and drive on the roads, you're going to pay a tax, a permit. You're going to have to get a permit to drive on their road. I know it's illegal. They're going by laws that are wrong. But they can intimidate you and make you abide by those laws by telling you they have all kinds of authority. See, they've made a kind of a stopgap authority. In other words, they don't really have any authority, but they buy the land, they purchase it. Now it's not even God's land. You can't have that land and go out there and put a tent. What they do is they get the American people to go and say, okay, yeah, we agree and we vote away our rights. Now it's people that did it. We've divided up the earth and we've given the government authority over it. Well, they don't have any authority over it. We're supposed to be able to go. We have a constitution, the government for the people and by the people. It's still here. It's still in, our government's still here. We have the right to bear arms to get rid of tyranny. But, of course, we're not going to exercise that right because, that would just be going too far, Dave. Okay, fine. And I'm not talking about a revolution. I'm just saying, not giving up our arms or any of our rights, the right to free speech, but we give our right of free speech up every day when they say, you can't say that. We're like, oh, well, then I won't say it. Because what am I going to do? They might put me in jail or something. Well, I'm saying they can put you in jail because the police officer is a human being and he has the right to do and act that way. They can teach these dossiers lies and they can run around and practice lies. It's kind of like black magic. But they'll get what's coming to them. But we, the people, don't have to believe them. And we should have taken back our government. And we should not have allowed any of this. I see this everywhere. And here's another example of it. For instance, why do they put preservatives in the food? It's poison. Well, they're trying to get rid of us. They're trying to kill us and dumb us down to, yeah, okay. But why don't they just come out with tanks and do what they want? Well, again, think about this. They don't have the authority to do anything. They just don't have that authority. They can't come down here and start shooting at us. Okay? They can get us to pass a law, and then they can faithfully abide by the law. They can get lawyers to lie and to give you wrong convictions. But they have to be, our Father in heaven will allow them to just universally, unilaterally make a law that says we're going to kill everybody. The only thing they can do is they can put a law out there, bring it up, then they can vote on it. Now, before they vote on it, they can have a campaign and try to convince the world that it'd be a great thing if we started killing babies. Now, they'll never be allowed. Yahweh's never going to come down here and kill our babies. He's not allowed to do that. But what he does is he sends lying spirits to the prophets. And his prophets will lie to us. Tell us, oh, this is good for you. This is the best thing for your environment. If you do this, we'll give you a tax break. Right? You don't need all these kids. That's going to cause a lot of, trouble. So these seniors are getting to be too much trouble. We're going to have to get rid of some of them. Right? Because they're all sick and nobody wants to take care of them. So anyway, what they do is they have this long campaign and they debate about it until they convince everybody to do some crazy thing. And we vote it in. And then if we make a law or they pass a law and we don't say anything, then that law then is our law and we abide by it. And they'll enforce it. So what they got to do is intimidate us. They got to deceive us before they can get us to convinced to accept some new law. And then once the law has been put into place, it's lawful. That's why the old covenant's in force. Because it says in the New Testament, they loved not the truth that they might be saved. They rejected the grace of the Lord. And so he will then allow the strong delusion to go unto them, because they would not receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. They rejected it. He offers it, and they reject it. So we all have his grace. We all have free will. And the Lord gave us a constitution. Liberty and justice for all. But we handed the government back over to Satan and said, thank you. We trust you, Satan. Do whatever thy will. And we today, right now, could say, look, enough of this garbage. And we could say, they're recalling Newsom. I mean, we can do it. We could recall all the governors. We could recall Biden right now. We have the authority to do that. So all we have to do is understand that we're not under law of any kind. And there's nothing the devil can do to change that. We're under the Constitution. And that's not a law. You shall make no law, the Constitution says, to restrict any of my freedoms or liberties. You cannot make any law to do any restrictions upon me. We go by natural law. The Constitution is just natural law. It says, I'll do what I want, you do what you want. That's what we're doing here. It's a government for the people and by the people. Liberty and justice for all. Our rights are just written there. They come from God, right? They don't come from government, it says. We have rights, but they come from God. And so, all we have to understand is that we are still under this Constitution of freedom and liberty. Just like what Christ told us. And the only way that any bad thing can happen is when we, the people, let it happen. So, the key to all of this is to wake people up, let people know the truth, And when we wake up in Mass, then Christ is here. And every eye will see him. And every tongue confess. I'm David Vos. I'm going to go ahead and go. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.